conducted both in person and virtual. In-person attendance will be limited to school committee members, superintendent, and business administrator. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this time. However, the meeting may be accessed remotely through Zoom and or Facebook. Agenda items closed. Read by chair, not all items listed may in fact be discussed. Those items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB and will be broadcast. Meeting is also being recorded by the committee recorder, other members of the committee, and members of the audience. Minutes will be transcribed and made public and posted to our website. So we will start out with a roll call to see who's here. We have two student members, Julia Bedell.
Here.
Zoe Holmes.
Here.
Ann Hutchinson. Let's see Ann here.
Oh, there she comes.
There's Ann. Ann, say here.
And stay here. Stay here.
Jason St. Peter.
Here.
Sean Stephen.
Yeah,
Bonnie.
Sorry.
Bonnie.
Here.
Molly Thomas.
Here.
Bill Fields. Here. Diane Singer.
Here.
Thank you. Corey Sprague.
Here.
And I am here. Rich is not here this evening. We have in our packet minutes of June 3rd, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Found one change.
Do you have it? Yes.
Yeah, just on the call to order, it said that you called the meeting to order, but it was Rich.
Yeah, it would have been Rich. And thank you. That's important. So do I have a motion with that change?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Ann, a second by Molly. Any discussion?
I have to abstain because I was not here.
Okay, it's a roll call vote. Ann Hutchinson,
Aye.
Jason St. Peter,
Aye.
Sean Stephen, he's in now. Bonnie Bondafoni, yes, Molly Thomas,
Aye.
Bill Fields,
Stay.
Diane Singer,
Yes.
Corey Sprague,
Yes.
and I will abstain as well. So it passes unanimously with 2 abstentions. We go into the superintendent's report.
Okay, I'm going to start with just a quick announcement about hybrid meeting etiquette, and I'll come back to you all with a more formal thing on this. But as we have more and more people in this room, we max out the capacity of our OWL thing to get to everybody. So it's really important we try to not, and we don't do this much. I think that another meeting yesterday when they were using it, they were talking over each other, and the OWL doesn't respond well to people talking over each other. And the other thing for people who are farthest away from it, like maybe Sharon or Corey or Bonnie, just when you talk, like really enunciate, and then it'll pick you up. And what we may do is, as we have more and more people in person, we may actually purchase another one so we can have one at this side of the room and one at that side of the room. But it's something we're aware of, and we're working hard on it. The other thing is, if somebody is zooming in from home, it would be great if their screen name was actually them and not their wife, their brother, their grandmother, or their kid. So we know who people are when they're talking. I understand sometimes we have to share laptops and that can be complicated, but more to come on that. I just wanted to share a little bit. One other thing. This happens every once in a while, and tonight's one of those nights. And before we get into the good news, I'd like to celebrate one of our really important people who is leaving us. So Tim Lee has ended his career with us as the principal at Muddy Brook, and he stayed with us an extra year in the context of the pandemic. And Tim is a remarkable educator and a really nice, thoughtful person. And he did great work at Muddy Brook. And I'd just like to take a minute to appreciate him. The good news is he'll be around in the community and we'll see him. Thank you, Tim, for all the work you did at Muddy Brook. Thanks for connecting with all the parents and the community and the staff, particularly Spanish-speaking parents. It's a great plus to have a fluent Spanish-speaking principal, and that was really important. And the list of things that Tim has done in the district is too long to mention. And I'd just like to say he's a great person who's done really good work. So thank you, Tim. And this is your last formal meeting, but we hope to see you around a lot. And Tim's, I think, deep in training for the Josh, so we can all go out and cheer him at that. So let's start with the good news. Obviously, school ended yesterday, right? So we made it through, I think, what is the most challenging year of any of our lives, right? And I'd really like to commend the staff and the families and the students for making the best of what could have been, and for some people really was disastrous, to come together and get through it. At the 8th grade graduation, Miles Wheat, the assistant principal, said a great remark saying to the students that they've all made it through a pandemic as students, and nobody else has done that. And all their future challenges will pale a little in comparison. And if they've been able to do this, they're well set up for the world. So I'd like to echo that and thank people there. So Tim, do you have a couple things to share, sort of end of year, final hurrahs?
Not much to share. It seemed like it came up pretty quick. The end of the year did. We kind of closed our school year with the staff and students all together on Tuesday of this week with a kind of a traditional drum circle activity and a clap out for our 4th grade students. It was actually the first time that we've been able to get the entire student one day prior to the end of the school year, but it was actually quite remarkable and a nice. Fairly uneventful. We closed yesterday at noon, and students went home with progress reports for the second term, class placements for next year, and also a class photo, the members of their class. At the beginning of the year, we weren't able to take those because of COVID, but one of our faculty members, Molly Cosell, is also a photographer and was able to take class photos of all of our classes. And then our friends at Staples were able to print those at a reduced price. And it was a nice memento, a nice gift for the students to have as they close this very unusual school year. So that's it. Thanks, Al.
Great, thank you. Ben, how did you end the year at Du Bois?
Yeah, it was a great ending of the year. Just like Tim said, it was just so nice really to be able to be together after such a difficult year of feeling isolated, whether at home or just even in school. We made the best of our small pods to keep it safe, and I'm very thankful of all the kind of safety measures we put in. But the end of the year really felt just the opposite in terms of community and really kept it safe. As you mentioned, we had a really wonderful graduation. Miles gave a great speech, but Peter and I really earned our paychecks on graduation evening. There was a lot of weather, and it was an outdoor graduation because we got a chance to use all the equipment and chairs and everything that the high school got to use on Saturday. So a week and a half ago on Tuesday, we had an outdoor graduation, but there were storms moving through the area, and we were really blessed. It's really just stopped raining right before graduation and held off till right after graduation. We had a wonderful outdoor ceremony where we got together all of the 8th graders and their families. And I'm just really appreciative of the district for being able to provide that kind of equipment for it. And it was just really great to celebrate them and great just to be together as a community. And then finishing off the school year, we really kept teaching right up to the end. Some really wonderful also celebrations right in the last full day on Tuesday. We feted the 8th graders with a lot of the awards that we normally do during graduation, we kept the ceremony short. So we gave all the academic awards at the end of the day, and we did our traditional team awards in the morning, where we really get a chance to appreciate the kids and really honor a whole diverse set of kids with all different aspects of who they are as citizens and learners and community members. And then we even got to do the same thing with the 7th graders on Wednesday during the half day. And I'm really proud the 5th grade, right up to the end, did our Science Week activity, Loon Lake. So the kids were literally on the last full day, chomping at the bit to share in the gallery works the mechanisms that they had designed to get rid of zebra mussels and invasive plant species on Loon Lake, which is a fictitious lake. But really right up to the end, the kids were really engaged in learning. So I was just really impressed with the faculty. And of course, I think the kids are hungry. They missed a lot of learning this year and really kept with us right to the end. So I'm just really proud of the middle school. And this was our first year that we were at Du Bois Middle School. So we also got to celebrate a lot of that at the end of the year and really looking at what does it mean to be the WB Du Bois Regional Middle School, which I hope to really invest in a lot more next year once we are all back together for real, which is what we hope.
Great. And Christy, I'm not sure if you're on by phone. I don't see you. Are you there?
She's in a room.
Okay, so I'll share a couple things, and then we'll hear the student report, which will highlight a couple other things happening at the high school. Obviously, the high school's done academically for the year. All sorts of athletic things continue. So the baseball team has a game. The track and field team is going to Western Central Mass, and that's really exciting. Sprinters, high jumpers, javelin throwers, a couple other hurdlers, a couple other things. So that's great. And then it's my understanding, tennis is also moving forward in additional competition. So that's it, I think, for the good news. Let me do the hybrid thing and then we'll come back to you two. When Steve and I put together the agenda a week ago, we weren't sure what was going to happen with the governor signing the bill into law around continuing some of the COVID special circumstances. And we're able to do Zoom meetings through April. I imagine what we'll try to do is some sort of hybrid thing, like what we're doing now, where as many people as can or want to come in person do, and we continue with the Zooming in option so that people from home or work can participate. One of the sort of silver linings of COVID was the use of technology around our school committee meetings and occasional moments of sort of extraordinary participation when there were 200 plus people on a call. So I think that's a win, and I love seeing everybody in person, and I'll continue to come here. But I think at least through April, we'll continue the hybrid things. And I think it's sort of universally felt that the hybrid approach is good, so.
Yeah, I think the only difference will be once April comes, assuming that the regulations that are in place now expire, is that we'll just have to have a quorum in person, and the people running the meeting, myself, will have to be here, or we'll have to run it, someone will have to run it in person. But other than that, I think it's been such a plus to have so many people call in or Zoom in that it would be a shame to just stop that.
Yeah, good. Any other feedback on that?
When are members of the public allowed to come?
When that's something we're gonna have to decide, and one of the problems we're going to have is we're gonna have to decide how we're gonna do it in this room, because there isn't a lot of room. So probably it'll be towards this fall before we allow it.
And no longer meeting at the 3 schools rotating?
That's gonna be interesting. Our technology people will have to weigh in on that, because not only will we have to move the owls there or buy owls for each school, we'd have to have a TV screen, which each school has TV screens that are on wheels.
Yeah, we gotta do some thinking.
It's a little more complicated, and it would be a shame to go to the schools and not be able to do the remote access for the public. So I think it's something that we'll spend the summer trying to investigate.
Good. So the next thing is the student member report process and subcommittees. So, and I'll frame it a little bit, and then the two of you can run with it. We're super excited to have students on the committee, and we're trying to make together some structural shifts or supports so their voices can be heard, not just on the school committee proper, but we run like 4 or 5 subcommittees, and we could all benefit from additional student voices on those subcommittees. And then to set up for the moment, Zoe and Julian, but in the future, perhaps somebody else. So they're speaking both as individuals and they have a lot to share, but they're also speaking in a way that's representative of the broader student body or school community. So Christy, Zoe, Julie, and I had a really good conversation about it. We're all thinking about it individually, and we came together and a lot of our ideas lined up. And I think that you both might share some of those and then share some of the things you're noticing.
Yeah, so we have now proposed that we have an agenda item at each school committee meeting, and where we'll cover different topics. We're going to spend the next couple of weeks and months reaching out to students and teachers and community members and coming up with some themes that we will come back to. And then hopefully throughout the year, we will have guest speakers who play various different roles in the school, talking about the progress that they're making in those areas. But for today, I think we just wanted to give like a brief update on the happenings of the high school at the end of the year, as Ms. Farina isn't able to be here.
Yeah, and obviously tonight it's sort of going to be mainly good things, but sort of the hope moving forward is it will be a good share of both good things and things that definitely need to be brought to your attention, because that's not necessarily something that always happens. So as Dr. Dillon shared, spring sports are coming to a close with students representing Monument and sort of participating in different final competitions, which is really exciting for all of the students involved as well as the school community. As the school year sort of wrapped up on Tuesday, obviously students are excited for summer, and many students at Monument have summer jobs and have internships lined up through our CBTE program, thanks to Mr. Flynn and the administration. But I think a lot of students really did enjoy definitely the last month of school. Thanks to the administration, we sort of wanted to thank Ms. Farina, but unfortunately she's not here, and Mr. Falkowski for sort of allowing time to be spent as a community. A lot of people sort of spoke about the isolation of COVID, and especially seeing that with our freshman students that had never been in the building before and were suddenly only coming in 2 days a week or not at all. At lunch and at our advisory time, students were playing lawn games together. We had spike ball competitions, and can jam and cornhole, if you're familiar. There was live music. People were playing music on speakers. And it was really, really sort of a great time to be there. And a lot of students that might not necessarily sort of enjoy the monotony of school, I think sort of treasured that time. And myself included, definitely didn't want the bell to ring. We're really excited for the 9th grade programming. There's a lot of teachers and students that are definitely getting behind this. There was definitely a little bit of apprehension when this sort of came about, just because of sort of the lack of information. But as people have sort of talked about it and conversations have been had, it seems that the consensus for the high school is that everyone's really, really excited to sort of make this shift into a more progressive and welcoming way of educating.
Yeah, and there are committees working over the summer to develop new classes and help restructure governance and advisory. And one of our big focuses for the summer and going into the fall is helping the incoming sophomores and freshmen really connect to the larger student body. So we went down and recruited for fall sports and other extracurriculars at the middle school just this last week, and we're all excited to hit the ground running in the fall.
And a big part of that Zoe mentioned is governance at Monument, and there's a terrible communication issue at Monument. Unfortunately, that's not part of the good news, but it's sort of an issue that's recognized by all. And Ms. Farina is taking some big steps to set up committees this summer to work on that and to try and address that issue. And the biggest goal of that would be to set up an advisory to the principal, where groups of students from different corners of the school will be able to meet with her on a bi-weekly basis to give their feedback about what's going on in the school and give updates about their specific lives and also the communities in which they represent. And then moving from there, the plan for this sort of the new structure would be either students are elected or appointed from that group, or we sort of have other students that are sitting on the school committee and students from those groups come to you each meeting to sort of give updates, because it's hard for Zoe and I or anyone else that sits on the school committee to sort of give an accurate picture, because we all sort of have different views. So the hope is to be able to, throughout the course of the year, to bring in sort of, as Zoe mentioned, speakers about what's going on in all different aspects of student lives at Monument. A big part of that is students on subcommittees. So we had spoken with Dr. Dillon in our meeting about including students on your subcommittees, and that will be something going forward, establishing next year, especially sitting on the Building and Grounds Committee, as students are probably, I would say, the biggest part of the voice that should be incorporated into that subcommittee, because we are the ones that spend our days in the building. And everyone is sort of, not everyone, because no one actually knows about it, but there's definitely consensus and hope for whatever happens with the future, whether it be the SBA or we continue forward on our own building a new school. Sustainability at Monument is something that we want to sort of focus on. The plastic in the cafeteria is a really growing problem. So to that, we just have a question for Dr. Dillon or anyone on the Building and Grounds Committee about the dishwasher, because I know that was an issue that we collected cutlery, metal cutlery that was able to be reused. And then I believe sometime over the course of this year, there was an issue with the dishwasher, forcing us to go back to plastic silverware.
Sharon can speak.
It had to do with COVID.
Oh, okay, perfect. So even better. Yeah.
But a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, the dishwasher did break and we replaced it. So.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
but this year it was COVID.
Phenomenal. Outdoor classrooms were a huge thing, thanks to the sustainability group at Monument, and once again, the help from the faculty and the administration. Students were out there using those really at all times of the day. The idea that some students don't see the light of day outside because of how their schedule works at Monument was sort of addressed definitely by the use of those outdoor classrooms. And finally, there's a group at Monument working towards bringing an app to the school committee and to Dr. Dillon. This app would sort of take over some of the current communication systems that we have in place, like emails and snow day notifications, and add a lot more to do with school spirit, what time sports games are, when the plays are, how students can be involved in different clubs and committees. And we hope to have that take place next year. Okay. I don't want to ramble. We wanted to keep this short, but just so concerns, obviously there's a lot of sort of worry, nerves, and fear about the ongoing issues with the driveway at the high school. So everyone is sort of thankful that will sort of be continued to push forward, and that members of the select board and the school committee sort of keep pushing the DOT on that and definitely don't give up hope. And then also the summer programs that have been sort of talked about, no one knows about them. The only reason that we know about them is because we come to these meetings. So if that's going to be successful, there definitely needs to be a lot more communication about that.
Julian, I just have to interrupt for a sec. So you can't say nobody knows about it, because several hundred people have signed up for them. So people in your friend group may not know about it, but I think upwards of 150, 200 people at the high school have signed up.
That's perfect. Yeah,
okay.
That's great. And I think that's it.
Can I ask a question to Steve? In regards to this meeting that's going to come up with, about the entrance and the exit, are we going to be part of that meeting in school committee, or is there going to be a limit, and could students be part of that meeting?
So the meeting that we're having first as a town of Great Barrington is going to be a meeting That's going to be, we're trying to arrange it, the town manager is trying to arrange it. And is the school committee represented? Yes, I'll be there.
Okay.
Definitely I will be there. As we move forward and as a result of that meeting, we'll spread out who comes to subsequent meetings. But right now, we're all trying to get on one page. Right now, we're trying to find a date that everyone will come. But yeah, I definitely will be there representing both the town and the school committee.
And I think.
And Dr. Dillon will be
Yeah.
there, and Steve Soul will be there.
And importantly, we're starting to internally come up with ideas so that we don't brainstorm with the DOT, but we go to meet with them with a list of like everything that we try to do that's thoughtful has multi-part solutions. So there are a whole host of small things we think we can do that would help things. And we even started looking at a mural artist in California who paints giant murals of young children dressed as policemen, like 20 feet tall, with their hand out, encouraging people to slow down, and decoy silhouettes of police cars so like psyops, right? Like what they do in the military, like inflatable tanks and things. A whole so we're looking at lights and lanes and all the signage and trafficking. And then like the most bizarre, these giant murals. So I think we'll put together a multi-part solution that could be really interesting.
Could I ask about the apps? Who's doing the app and who's paying for it and who's developing it? And
Yeah, so.
it's a good idea.
Yeah, no, so the app is through the YAS group that brought about Zoe and I's participation here. And part of the meeting will be sort of working with Dr. Dillon and the administration on sort of seeing how money can be saved from the programs that will eliminate, like the email systems and the snow day systems and the systems we currently have in place, and working to sort of find a way that can be paid for. We've been working with the Youth Operational Board from Railroad Street because their big thing is funding youth-led projects, and this just sort of fits right in their wheelhouse.
Yeah, we're applying for a grant from.
And just to put it in context, it's relatively small money, right? So there's some startup fees, but a year subscription to it's like $4,500, and this off-the-shelf app has the capacity to replace 5 or 6 things we're already using that we're paying between $1,500 and $600, right? So the potential trade-off might be, instead of using, and I'll forget all the names, but I think I use School Messenger to do snow chain calls and things like that, right? Emergency announcements. We could stop using that. That's $1,500 a year. That $1,500 could go against the $4,500 of the new one. We use Constant Contact for email communications. This would take over that, and also sort of the role of newsletters, and that's like $500 or $600. So the really what we need to do now, and I'm doing this, is looking at the inventory of all the discrete systems we use versus what's embedded in this system. And I think the net increase might be like $1,000.
We certainly need it. I mean, you can't even find out when Ford's meet is going to be. You can't find it anywhere. I mean,
right.
you go nuts.
So, and like this whole system's like an integrated thing. So we post one thing in one place and it would ripple through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, individualized calendars that, like, if your son is playing soccer, then you could subscribe to the soccer calendar. And if you also were a swimmer, because they need swimmers, right? Then the swim calendar would also populate on your board.
Does it then rest somewhere where people can go back and look at it kind of in a historical and archive kind of way, or would that be a different solution?
No, I think so. I mean, it's really comprehensive and wonderful. We did a meeting with the firm, like a hour walkthrough of all of it, and I'm very excited about it.
Like newsletters, you can go back and look at previous issues of newsletters.
Right, and it would, like, sort of, the big thing is it integrates everything, so all those social media outlets I mentioned, plus our website, plus other things, and you could go back and forth and look at everything. So I think there's real potential. As you know, even though folks work hard on them, the Friday afternoon newsletter is challenging, right? There's more information than you possibly need, and if you,
Well, it's so good that you want to be able to refer back to
Right.
it, and apart from being able to, search through old emails and then go, there's just a lot of clicking that has to
Yeah.
happen, whereas if that information could be held in a more accessible way.
so I think, and I need to look at it a little more, I think this does it, and other schools and school systems that are using it are very excited about it, so I think it's really promising.
Yeah, and the great thing is it's on your phone, and I don't know how many teenagers really check their email. So it's a perfect spot.
I learned that.
Cool.
Quick question, welcome to both of you. It is great to have both of you here and see your faces in person. And it's wonderful, and it's gonna be, I think, great for us to get more information about the high school. Did you guys talk at all about how to better incorporate and represent the middle school and elementary school and those student voices? And is that something worth exploring?
I would say, yes, we didn't cover that in our meeting, but I think that they have their own kind of student voice structures that we could definitely look into how we can get them to contribute.
And I think sort of the notion of special guest speakers is a really good idea, and our best meetings are the meetings with many voices, right? And the worst meeting was like 6 weeks ago when I had like a script of 50 things to share. So like that's the continuum, right? And I think there's some issues with elementary school kids around the time of our meetings and what's going on. But that, like, maybe every 6 weeks or 2 months, we have a small group of elementary school students share something, or maybe they do a prepared video and share
I
that.
just want to make sure, because our reps are high school students, we just want to avoid the meetings becoming too high school focused.
Yeah. That's a really good.
Can I add another topic to the students? That I'd like you to report back on at some point during the next year. I've discussed it with the principal. The choice of speakers at graduation, I'd like to know whether or not you could, the valedictorian salutatorian method to me is antiquated, and now that we're moving toward inclusion and diversity, and I think it would behoove the high school to look at maybe having, for example, a student chosen speaker and a faculty chosen speaker. So I'll just throw that out for your agenda.
And that also is a school committee decision. So.
Yeah.
And I mean, this has been something the policy committee's been talking about for
3 years.
well, at least 5 years. And as I was watching other schools and their graduations, while most places still name a valedictorian and a salutatorian, many other schools also name the top 10 students, and they don't name them like 1 and 7 and 9, just as a group. And there's something interesting and promising about that. This connects also to our work on proficiency-based learning and assessment. Like this is a big topic, and I think one of the things I'm most excited about with Zoe and Julian shared was this sort of idea of mapping out a year's worth of stuff, and I think that's something we could even do better as a school committee. So there's the cycle of the year, the budget, major initiatives, other things that happen. But there's some important topics that we're going to be dealing with for the next 50 years. And we should, and a lot of them are tied to subcommittees, right? So they come up in that context, but we should chart out what those are and make sure we, in the course of a year, I think we have 22 meetings, right? Regular school committee meetings. Sometimes we have a couple more. And we should look at our time as a resource and decide what we value and allot the time to what we value and dig into it.
One more small thing. It was good to go down and sell activities at the high school to the 8th graders, but the 9th graders never got that. You know, the 9th graders.
Yes.
There were 3 boys went out for track this year. 3. You're not gonna have a track team in 2 years if that repeats itself, right?
Exactly. So I can't speak to what every group has been doing, but
I'm not asking you to solve it right now,
no, but we definitely, I was speaking to a lot of the 9th grade team, which having that team of teachers makes it really helpful for communicating with them, about trying to have the same sort of just outlining what opportunities exist for them outside of school. And they did think that because the end of the year was kind of like a hit or miss time and some students were not even like coming to classes anymore, it would be better to do that in the fall when they come back. But that's definitely on everyone's radar.
And there's some discussion, I really like this idea about a 10th grade reorientation.
Mm-hmm.
So we always do a orientation for the 9th graders, but the 10th graders, and I hate to say like they're the lost generation, they're not really lost, right? But they could use a little more support and grounding. So I'll continue to talk to Christy about what a 10th grade reorientation could look like.
I would just add that in a traditional year, there's a club fair. So in the fall, all the sports teams would gather in the gym along with all the different clubs, and every student during advisory would have an opportunity with their group to visit that and to sign up for those groups. So making sure that happens next year, and even with the spring sports, that it's traditionally sort of the fall sports. So maybe that can happen for either a second time after the winter to sort of incorporate everything that's still going on and try and get more involved.
How does the club fair work in the fall if most of the fall sports actually start pre-seasons mid to late August?
Yeah, exactly. It's hard. I'd say that with the freshmen, sort of the idea of going into the middle school is how they sort of tackle that issue. But no, you're right. There really isn't a lot of that. So maybe if we're able to sort of incorporate that second club fair into the spring with the hopes of getting students to sign up for that current spring season, and then in addition, the upcoming fall season.
And I think what we have to do this summer is like let people catch their breath for a second. Right? School ended yesterday. Everybody's exhausted. And in a week or two, do a good email and maybe call to all incoming 9th graders, because it's not just kids coming or young people coming from Du Bois, but they're the 13 or 14 8th graders coming from Richmond, and they're the 32 choice students from 37, or no, it can't be that. 37 choice students from 32 different different towns. So that's a group too. And getting 2 or 3 more people to do cross-country, football, both soccer teams, and volleyball's full too.
Yes.
And volleyball could make all the difference. The winter sports, it doesn't matter as much because we have the whole fall to recruit people for the winter ones. And also it's not just sports, but it's the quiz team and fall festive and yeah, on and on and on. Right? They're a whole.
I guess to Anne's point, maybe though, it's not only a note that goes to the incoming 9th graders, but also to the rising 10th graders.
Yeah. No, so we'll do that.
Like anything, the most important thing is reaching out personally, so it's getting all the current sports teams to call. Kids coming, right, kids they know, kids they already know from soccer teams, et cetera, and say, hey, we're captain's practice starts.
No, I mean, I'm guessing like the soccer players
Soccer
are-
players, that's a good group thing.
pretty taken care of, right? Like the path is clear, but there's no real feeder program for cross country. So that's around individual outreach.
Or volleyball, right? Every place, we don't have sports at that.
In the youth, yeah.
Okay, so we'll work some on that. Thank you too. You're like off to a killer start. Good stuff. And we'll, as you all and the high school starts to identify people, we'll do a matchmaking thing and get somebody to policy, get somebody or a couple people to buildings and grounds, get people to the communications group, finance, the whole range. Cool. So the next thing on the agenda, and I'll have Ann talk about it a little bit if you're okay doing that, is the evaluation thing. So we have an do you want a copy of it? Yeah.
So we did the evaluation. It's always a bit of work because we're evaluating superintendent in public. Those of you who worked in the real world, your evaluation is never a public thing, right? It's something that's written up by your supervisor or maybe a couple of supervisors, and then you sit down with you in person and work through what the issues are and what items you need to work on and what items you can excel at. Peter gets to have his done in public, it's 100% public. So it's always felt like an unusual setup, and it's also something that is, because it's public, it's really public. It can be published in the paper tomorrow morning, and it will be. That said, we're also judging him or rating him on a lot of things, some of which we know very well, because we meet with him every other week and we hear how he does with the public and we hear how he does on Zoom calls. Some of them we don't get to see because we don't see, unless somebody talks to us about how we interacted with their particular family or their particular student issue. Or I got to see a lot about how he interacts with the union because I happen to be on all those negotiating teams. And we had a lot of meetings this year because we were negotiating salaries for professional staff and also because we were negotiating how we were going to get through a pandemic and how we were going to get teachers and students safely into the school. And he did a great job. It's really hard because there's so many competing values there. So that being said, Bonnie and Sean and I did do this evaluation and we gave him excellent marks. I can go through, it's broken down into both the goals that Peter has set for himself, which are mostly about trying to get through the pandemic, and then goals that are set by the state, which are instructional leadership, management, and operations, where he has a good right-hand person to make sure he does a good job, and then family and community engagement, and then professional culture. And Peter knows rules and the laws and the ethics very well, so those are also very high marks. Communication is always an issue, and that's one of the things that we are always talking about and always working through. How to communicate, and of course in this year it was even more upended than usual in terms of how communication is done. We've hired some new people this year, and I think that's going to have an impact going forward. We have a director of learning and teaching, obviously two principals, principal and assistant principal in our school, and also we now have somebody in the wellness, health and wellness leadership, which are all things that we really need going forward, that there are people who step into those, so that we don't have a one-man person administrating the world, or at least the world of Bhrsd. I don't know if there's any questions.
Any questions by either the audience or anyone in this room? Doesn't seem like any.
So thank you, Ann, for doing it, and Bonnie and Sean. One thing we talked about is going forward, and this was an interesting year because the last several years, we've done our process simultaneously with the Shaker Mountain School Union. And then when the union dissolved or reduced, and now I'm here and in Richmond, we decided to separate the process. 3 people is probably at least one, if not too few. And having it be 4 or maybe 5 people may make sense going forward. So after we catch our breath a little bit in the summer and start thinking about this next year, we may reach out and see if we could get another person or 2 people to join that.
I'd just like to make a suggestion in the future, that we include some sort of staff and student feedback on, and it would be up to, I guess, Ann's committee to try to address that issue. I know that I've addressed it in the past since I've been on here. Is it just, I think it's important that we listen to the people who work with Peter and students. I never forgot as a teacher asking kids who was the superintendent, and they couldn't name the person. They didn't know who the superintendent was when a particular superintendent observed me. They didn't know who that person was. And I had to introduce that person to the class. Oh, okay.
Bill, I'd like to think that was 30 years ago, not in the last few.
Well, I won't mention, it was before you. That's all I'll say. But I think that's needed too. So that's just my comment.
Yeah, we did make a decision in this, like, I think last year we did a giant survey of all the staff, and we made a decision in this crazy year to do another survey. Would it just made people nuts? But I'm open to it. There's another interesting thing. And the state's backed away from this a little bit, but several years ago, and I was sort of the guinea pig on public evaluation, right? And then everybody would give me feedback, but there was an expectation that principals would do the same, and assistant principals, and that even teachers would get feedback from students, parents, and colleagues, and the several of the principals have and assistant principals have participated in that, and Christy and Peter Falkowski are in the process of doing like a 360 review, getting feedback this year from staff at least. But I think that's something we should revisit, and maybe not do it for everybody every year, but come up with some deliberate cycles. So we rotate it.
I think it's just important to hear from other, and I know this is a state document. I was just used to doing, I guess, in my own classroom, my own evaluations for the kids, and then having the principal come in and do the same, so.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. All right, so the next one, and it's phrased a little funny, and I'll send it to Steve. We put on the agenda contract review, but really what I meant to put on the agenda was, and this is a testament to my terrible handwriting, contract renewal. So I'm at the end of a 3-year contract. Sharon is also. I'll hand that over to you, Steve.
Yeah, so what the school committee typically will do is renew the contract for another 3 years. And terms will be negotiable, which with Peter, I will handle the negotiations, and then we'll discuss if need be. And so that's all we really need tonight, is just a formal motion and a vote to renew the contract for another 3 years. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, Mahoney's not here. I make a motion, we renew Dr. Dillon's contract for another 3 years.
And might as well do both at the same time, Sharon.
Oh, Sharon Harrison.
So I have a motion by Ann, I have a second by Molly. Discussion, since I couldn't even get a motion. Discussion is gonna be limited, I can tell you that. Discussion, no discussion, anyone in the audience? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote. Ann,
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Sean, I don't think joined us. Bonnie,
Aye.
Molly,
Aye.
Bill,
Yes.
Diane. Did we lose Diane?
I think she's still there. Just give her a sec.
Yeah.
She might be on her phone. Or do you want to come back to it?
I'll give it a second and then I'll come back to it. Corey?
Aye.
And I, it's unanimous. Diane, are you there? She may have stepped away from the call, but
Okay.
I don't think it's anything personal to either you or
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Perfect.
So thank you, everybody. I'm excited about that. The next thing, so I'm bringing back the calendar. I'm sorry to do this again. There's a teeny change that I think I forgot to include on the last one, which is a half day on February 8th. I'm sorry, February 9th. So that's the only change in this. And now it's parallel to pre-COVID contracts with the right amount of half days. They're spread out evenly. The intentional shift, and I explained this last meeting, was to move them from Fridays to Wednesdays. That messes up a handful of people's ski weekends, but we think it'll be better for attendance on those days.
So I have a motion to add February 9th on the calendar as a half day.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
That worked better. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Ann,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Bonnie,
Aye.
Molly,
Aye.
Bill,
Yes.
Diane.
Yes.
Thank you, Corey.
Aye.
And I, it's unanimous.
Great, so thanks on that. The next one, and John Bruno's joining us by phone, and I think he'll be available to talk about this, is a little update on our summer offerings. We sent, and John, are you there?
Yeah, I'm at home.
Good. Hey, good. So why don't, John, you just talk about what's going on with elementary and middle school students and what's going on with high school students?
Okay, so as we all know, staffing is a real issue this summer. Everyone needs to take a break. So we have had a really hard time staffing folks for the summer programs. And generally, we had a 7-to-1 ratio, student-to-teacher ratio. We actually upped that this year to 10-to-1. And we were able to enroll, excuse me, about 200 students on campus participating in Project Connection and ESY. And then we also have dozens of high school students in addition to that outside of Project Connection that are also partaking in other activities like 3 college classes at Bhrsd, VCC, MCLA. We also have students participating in SAT prep. We have students who are also participating in paid internships. And one of the things we just actually did today is reach out to students to offer another paid internship over the summer to work Project Connection to help us get some more students enrolled if possible. So if any high school students out there are looking for a summer job still, we are offering. And I think that's about it. We're excited. We've upped our enrollment this year, which is great. Even with the reduced staffing, we've been able to up the enrollment. And we'd really like to try and fill some more slots. We have about 50 families who we weren't able to allow access to, and we'd really like to be able to access those 50 families as well, but we need the staffing in order to do that, and it's been very difficult to locate staff.
To reiterate, the high school need is completely met, so anybody in high school who wanted to do something, we were able to do it, but we're short those, or we have a wait list of 50 people in K-8 and to chip away at that.
Yeah, high school students, we still have availability, so if there's high school students that still want to participate in things, we still have availability at the high school level.
Great. Any questions for John about the summer offerings?
How are the 50 families decided? Was it a first come, first served basis?
No, it's a need basis. It's 200 families. About 50 are participating in ESY and the rest are in Project Connection, and the 150 students in Project Connection were based on need, based on economic and academic needs.
And we're working our way down the list. And if somebody drops out, if we're able to recruit more staff, and we might create another class and call the next 15 or 20 kids. Great, thank you, John. And John did really nice work with Tom Kelly and Ryan and Ryan Kelly also and the principals on this.
And Kate.
Oh, yeah, sorry, and Kate Birdsall. So I've got one other one for you, or a couple other things, and then Alana, thanks for hanging in. You'll be next after this. As we started doing registration for the high school, and this is a really nice shift that we haven't seen. Many more young people are interested in taking French than have previously been interested in taking French, and we're not able to take our one high school French teacher and have her teach all those classes. So I would like to move some money around, but ultimately use some of our ESSER or recovery funding to for this year fund half a position in French so we can offer French to more students. At the end of the day, I might sort of switch the money and use the grant funds to fund a math position, which will sit better with the grant funders than French, because they see French as more esoteric. But I'd like to move forward with that. I don't think I've ever asked you ever in my 12 years to let me access existing grant funds to fund an additional position because of demand. It's a good problem to have, right? It's a testament to what Catherine Elliott's doing in the middle school and to what our new French teacher, Miss Siegel's doing at the high school. And for that to happen in the context of a pandemic is even a bigger deal, right? Because you would think numbers would be off.
Do I have a motion to approve? And a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Bill, a second by Molly. Discussion?
Can you explain what a half position means, and if you think it's likely to be filled? And if not, could we find ourselves in a position where we don't have that additional French teacher, and you still have the desire for the French class, and you might have to turn students away simply because the single French teacher isn't able to handle the workload?
Yeah, so I mean, a typical teacher teaches 5 or 6 classes in a day, a high school teacher. So a 0.5 is a halftime teacher, and they either teach 2.5 classes or 3 classes in a day. So there are people in the building and all different. Most people are full-time teachers, right? But one of the music teachers is a 0.6, so her day is just shorter, right? So we'll reach out and try to find a language teacher. It might be somebody who works in some other context or who works in a university setting. In all likelihood, they'd either be on a morning schedule or an afternoon schedule, and we'd work with the existing teacher to see which classes made sense for her to do and which one for the halftime person to do. It's not as easy to hire a French teacher as it is to hire an English teacher, right? Or we did interviews for social studies teachers and 35 people applied, right? So, I think, but it's also not hiring a physics teacher, which is really hard. So I'm pretty confident we'll find somebody. I think sort of the worst case scenario would be to do, and this is like a terrible suggestion coming off too much staring at screens pandemic time, but to do some technology assisted thing, but I don't think we'll need to do that.
Erica Milky, you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. I was curious. I find that to be a surprising fact just because of the usefulness of Spanish in the current world. And maybe I'm a little biased as a former Spanish teacher, but I'm curious if it looks like a permanent trend. Like, are you also seeing that, Peter, with middle school students who are choosing which language to do a deep dive into?
The structural difference, and it's a really good question, Erica. The structural difference is we have 2 full-time Spanish teachers at the high school, and we have 1 full-time French teacher, right? So I don't know. It may just be sort of this anomaly or a cluster, or it may be that students and families are really valuing another language. I want to go back and look at the numbers in both languages over time. Not so long ago, but a while ago, we had an English teacher who also taught a discrete class, one in linguistics, but at different times. I mean, she was like jack of all trades, Renaissance woman, right? But occasionally in other languages. And I was actually shocked because she managed to teach herself Marshallese, which I learned as a Peace Corps volunteer. And nobody teaches themselves Marshallese except Peace Corps volunteers, right? And maybe missionaries. So she was amazing. But so one could argue that we were down a class there anyway. I don't know. I don't exactly know what's going on, and it's particularly strange in the context of the pandemic. But it warrants sort of looking at the numbers longitudinally and our kids moving from Spanish to French. Are they starting in French, or are the students we're getting, and we get a lot, but not a significant number of students from BCD. Are they all coming with interest in French? So they also offer Spanish and they offer Latin. So I don't know. I'll dig into it some more.
Maybe it's more of a question for Christy, who's not here, so it's fine if it needs to be deferred, but with this examination, will you be looking kind of more holistically at the language program at the high school in general? Because I think that there's an uptick maybe on the freshman side, but I'm also wondering if there's down kind of a fall off at an earlier grade when we get to 11th and 12th. I've certainly found gatekeeping and things like that kind of change the language experience at the high school level.
Yeah, it's a conversation we've been having for the 12 years I've been here, and probably before that, right? So what are the requirements at the high school around world languages? When do students start? When do they stop? Why are they or why are they not doing 4 years of a language at high school? What's scheduled at the same time? It's a big really complex thing. And I'll have a conversation with Christy. When we were talking before about topics that are worth unpacking.
Yep, this is one of them.
That's a really good one.
Right. It's been discussed as long as I've been here. At times, we've had German, we've had Latin, and
I think I was ready to get Mandarin started, and I knew I would have got run out of town if I did. So it's a good one. And Erica, a really good question.
So we have a motion, we have a second, a roll call vote. Ann?
Aye.
Jason? Aye. Bonnie?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
Bill? Yes. Diane?
Yes.
Thank you. Corey?
Aye.
And I'm unanimous.
Okay, so the next one I was hoping to bring up, and we've got Alana Steinauer on the call as well, and she can speak to this, is we're always trying to do a better job of reaching out to parents, families, and students. And one of our underserved populations is our immigrant community and non-native English speakers. And we did a lot of really interesting work with Deb Bacino and a host of folks around collaborative care and trying to address the mental health, service needs of families. And the immigrant community is a group we could do better with. So essentially what the proposal is on this is for us to use some grant funds to contract with volunteers in medicine, do more outreach to the immigrant community, particularly those with students in our school district, and make stronger connections and set them up for even more success, right? And the largest community is the Spanish-speaking community. But if you go a little beneath the surface, there are all sorts of language groups. We have sort of basic adequacy around Spanish, but zero communicative competence around Twi, Vietnamese, Laotian, on and on and on. And this lines up really nicely with Vim's work and skill set. So what we're proposing is we contract with them to reach out almost in the way like a parent coordinator would work in another school system. It's relatively small money, $20,000. We have the money in two different grant lines, rural sparsity aid and rural health. We would sign and negotiate a contract with them, and they would do this work as a pilot. They're as maybe more compulsive than I am around data and outcomes, and we'd agree to some outcomes and some measures and track it. And if it was impactful and opened up opportunities and doors for kids and families, then I might come back to you and ask to continue or expand it. And if we didn't demonstrate success, then we'd either revise it or not move forward with them. Alana, are you able to talk some to this?
Sure, but that was good. So, this is, obviously, the schools and the system is not our specialty, but we have kind of found our niche in care coordination for this community. And so what we are hoping to do is hire a immigrant from actually Berkshire Hills School District, hopefully a parent themselves from the district to be this liaison. And the goal would really be to maximize the immigrant parents' engagement in their child's academic life. And so not just translating between teacher and school, but really how do we help to increase the capacity of the educators? How do we start to bring a more shared understanding of what are the needs of this immigrant community and how do we better serve them? And I think, we can bring examples of how are we communicating. So it sounds like high schoolers don't check their email either, but one of the main ways that people communicate through the schools is email, but we know specifically with a lot of our patients, email is not the best way to communicate, or we have parents whose Spanish is not their first language and the emails go out in English or Spanish. And, there's, I think, gaps that need to be identified. I think there's some simple solutions. We're not going to sign on to do the work of the school. We're not going to sign on to become your interpreters or to sign up 100 kids for Project Connection, but to really work with the parents and the school to start to build a better relationship and hopefully work, with this big initiative that you're doing with the Stoke Collaborative as well, to really look at how does this look like, what does this look like now and in the future for the school? So I think in your packet, Peter put in just kind of a brief proposal. So if you haven't read it, it kind of goes through it a little bit more.
Do folks have questions around this?
No, I think the only thing I was gonna say was to make sure that they were looped into the work that was going on with the Stoke team.
Yeah.
So that's great to hear.
Good.
Yeah, we spent about 2 hours with them this morning and talked about this idea and, not quite sure what it's going to look like going forward with the Stokes Collective. But one of the ideas that we had was that they could help design, they can help look at this position, design it, and help really make sure it's doing what it needs to do for the community.
I have one question. Erica Milkey, go ahead. Just state your name and address just for the record.
Sure. Erica Milkey, 13 East Street in Great Barrington. I think this sounds amazing. Ilana, thank you for all the work that you guys do at VIM. I think it's incredibly important. And I just wanted to mention that a group of parents at the middle school have been working with Ben on some ideas for we're still working on the final name, but like a resilience or welcoming committee, among other things, like a parent advocacy group that would work to welcome new parents and kind of work as almost like a volunteer basis extension of what Ilana is talking about for the immigrant community, to make sure that all parents can be involved and aware of what's going on and feel connected to the Du Bois community. So I'm really excited about this potential, and I see that it could really be somebody who could help to direct this group of interested parents that want to reach out to people who maybe don't feel as connected to the school community as they'd like to be. So I think this is an amazing idea. I would love to see an immigrant parent in this role.
Thank you, Eric.
And you want
Go
to
ahead.
have discussion, or do you want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I think it's super important. In my work, I've come across families with children in the school system who literally have no connection to the school because of extreme language and cultural barriers. No connection, right? They can't read an email, they can't, so nothing goes through. And if you have old enough kids, they need to say, oh, you're not interested in them. Oh, private connection. We're not going to summer school. With parents need not just advocacy, but a community. Because if you are Spanish, probably somebody will reach out to you from the Spanish community, or you'll know, you'll have a relative here from Nicaragua or whatever. But if you come from another background, you may have no one. Or you can be part of a community that has no other students in the school, so even your community that's maybe, part of the community doesn't know anything about the schools and how schools work and school systems work in the United States. So I think it's super, it was fun to me to be connected with a family that really, they're in a black hole. And it's super important that we have somebody who really is going to make those connections, because the school can't do everything. The school can do what the school does, but if they can't, someone's got to reach outside the school community to make those connections with people who are cut off from all of that, whether language or culture is.
Do you have a motion to approve this pilot partnership with them?
I make a motion to approve this pilot partnership with them.
Second the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion by Ann, a second by Bill. Other discussion? And Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I find this really exciting. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Ilana, and the district for supporting it. And thank you, Erica, for your just share. I just want to say we have a promising practice at the middle school. We use an app called Talking Points to communicate with people whose primary language is not English in the household. It's very helpful because it goes out via text. But we also, Uli has worked really hard at the IT level, Uli Kolhasa, to create a Google plugin for our website, which automatically translates into any language that we target through some Google tools. So what we're able to do is actually send out, for example, the week at a glance or any missive that we have, as long as we post it on the website as an HTML, which is what websites are native to, we can then send out the link to families in their target language, whether it's Spanish or Portuguese or Gujarati or whatever. It goes to them in that language. We're able to access our website and read it in that target language. And I agree, a lot of immigrant families don't use email and text, and then the ability to translate on demand is really helpful for those families. So I'm really excited to try those practices out, and then obviously explore all the other ways that we can bring families in. So I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. So we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Ann?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bonnie?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
The dog.
Is it? Oh, it says yes. It's dog language.
Go on, Corey.
Aye.
And I, Diane, are you there?
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous.
All right. Thank you very much, and thanks, Alana. So a grant update and summary. So in your packet, and I can talk to this a little, and Sharon can talk to it too. And for those of you that need reading glasses, our apology. I tried to get it all on one page. It's the one with the green on it, right? Really text heavy. So this is the list of all the grants coming in. In the far column, there are ones that are, or the left column, there are ones that are new, all right? And we're working through this. One of the things that's unusual this year is some of the federal money comes with a longer than typical, right? So we're getting through our first round of ESSER funding, which is the big recovery funding. And then there's a second, and then there'll even be a third round of ESSER funding, which is great, right? But I can't remember. It's probably Rich. Now he's not there, who wanted a sort of sense of all the different grants and grant funds. But this spells it out. The backside is sort of the timelines around each in a graphic way. So we could respond to questions. This may be a better resource document, and we sort of put it aside, and then in future meetings, as we talk about planning and stuff, this is one not to recycle, like keep it somewhere, and then we can go back and say, remember that thing we talked about? This is how we would like to use some of that funding. This is how we'd like to use some of this other funding. But the good news is, I mean, like we're all going to be paying this in our taxes and our children and grandchildren, right? So that's the tough news. But the good news is we're a little more resourced than we have been. And I'm pretty happy with how the summer's shaping up in the context of what the year is. But as we look forward to the next year and the year after, we'll have significant resources to invest in student growth after school and in staff growth during the year that we typically wouldn't have in a normal year.
Now, there'll be another round of federal money coming our way that we don't know enough about right now.
Right, so that's the third ESSER. So the second ESSER is like $559,000. The third ESSER will likely be more than that, but we don't know how much.
So when we do, can we come back to the school committee with the amount, of course? But I know there's going to be guidelines with what it can be spent on.
Yeah.
And that.
A lot of the guidelines are around evidence-based teaching and curriculum practices.
What about infrastructure?
I'd have to look, that was.
I looked at that a little bit. It's a little complex, and if you want to do a capital thing, you have to get like almost like an exception to policy, like special permission to move forward. It doesn't mean it's impossible. As often is the case with federal money, the sort of big mantra is supplement, not supplant. So if we use this to pay for existing math teachers, they would get grumpy. But if we use this to hire a new math teacher to reduce class size and push achievement, that would be okay. Or if we used it to invest in Sharon got the phrase, the evidence-based curriculum, right, then it would be okay.
So when we know more about it, when we know more about it, come back, Cory.
Just with the ones, especially the ones that look like an end date of June, is there any places where we're leaving money on the table?
No, we don't do that.
That's against, Cory, that's against policy. That would be against policy.
No,
There actually is just one because the grant was so specific. I actually think it was the only thing that we're returning this year that we will most likely get back in another form is the Bhrsd tonic, because we had one program that we absolutely could not run. And I think it's $1,500, so, but we turn that back to them and then they put it back in their grant pool. So otherwise, no.
good. So there's that. The vacancies, like we're plowing along on that. We filled library and media specialist position at the middle school. That's exciting. We filled a social studies position at the high school. That's really exciting. Spanish position at the middle school we filled. It's also exciting. I think that's it for the moment, right? And we'll get to some of this on the personnel report, but and then a psychologist position that's going to be district-wide we filled. And that's with somebody who was an intern here. So we know her well. She's fully certified, and that's great. We filled another middle school science position. Good. Should I do the COVID thing and then we do the end of year projection and summer work as part of the operations report?
Yeah.
Okay. So COVID thing. So numbers are great. They're creeping up a little bit, but I don't think it's something to be terribly worried about. But obviously I watch them every day. Berkshire County's green. A lot of Massachusetts is green. Massachusetts is doing a lot better than all our neighboring states: New York, Vermont, Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire. So that's really good. I was on a call with the commissioner yesterday, and this will be in writing shortly, but it was very clear that masks will not be required as we start the school year.
How about the summer?
That's up to our decision. But no masks for the school year. Presumably most high school age students are vaccinated now. So we might end up having a slightly different approach where high school students in the summer might not have to wear masks, but elementary and middle school kids who largely are unable to be vaccinated. Not entirely, like 7th and 8th graders could get vaccinated, maybe some 6th graders. But I'm not I heard it, they haven't given us formal guidance yet. I'll follow their guidance. And the one advice that the commissioner did share, which I thought was really thoughtful, was as we started last school year, many school districts went way beyond state standards and what they negotiated or agreed to. And then as the year went on and things got better, it was hard to undo those agreements. That wasn't the case for us, but it was in some of our neighboring communities. And his strong advice was, now that we understand this better, and now that it's manageable, follow the state guidance. Don't go beyond the state guidance. So we'll see what happens there. But again, I think we're in a very good shape. For the moment, we're not hosting clinics anymore at Du Bois. They're doing all of that at the testing center in between the police station and Aroma, the Indian restaurant in Great Barrington.
Jim hosted a lot of teenagers last time.
Yeah.
And I believe they're going to do it at Fairview Hospital. They're going to do the vaccinations at Fairview.
Okay.
Starting on Monday.
Okay, so that's news to me, but good. And if the CDC opens up vaccination to people younger than 12, then I imagine we would start doing clinics again at the middle school, but we're not there yet. So that's the COVID update.
So let's go to subcommittees then.
Okay.
Policy has not met, but starting in the fall, we need to ramp up policy, I think, with the pandemic.
There's so much policy to do.
Yeah. That's the problem. Jason, building and grounds?
We did not meet, we tried, but we couldn't find a time or quorum, so it'll be on the agenda.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure we let you know when the next B&G meeting is, so.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Technology has not met, finance has not met. Personnel report.
So you have the personnel report in front of you. I mentioned the psychologist who's joining us. Helen Eline, a longtime math teacher and more recently STEM teacher at the middle school, has announced that she's retiring effective October 22nd. So we have lots of time to talk to her and pester her and wish her well. Really nice person, thoughtful educator. As Ann mentioned, we probably spent more time talking to Helen and Donna this year than we might have even spent talking to our respective husbands and wives. So between negotiations and on the contract and like weekly check-ins on COVID and the health, we talked a lot with them. So we wish Helen well. A couple interns who are coming back, I think, for the second year, each of them working on technology. That's very exciting. And then the rest of it are extracurricular appointments. I mentioned some of the other retirees before, but just seeing his name, Scott Annan, longtime teacher, assistant principal, and then teacher, had his last day yesterday. So we wish Scott well.
Okay, moving ahead, Sharon, FY22 summer expenses.
Well, I think the first thing, Steve, you may want to ask back and get a question on the second page. As you know, I look at the budget very, very carefully, regularly, and ran after yesterday's warrant another projection, and it looks to me with our expenses, revenue, that we're projecting at a $2,125,091 E&D balance. Again, that needs to be certified. That's typically certified in December, January. So this is really a rough, conservative projection. And that equals 7% of our combined operating capital budget for next year. We can't, by law, have more than 5%, which is $1.5 million. Given that, and in an unusual movement by me, I'm recommending the potential to spend more E&D. What it normally.
Is that the best when people do what makes them uncomfortable?
But we have several projects that Buildings and Grounds has talked about and Steve's talked about during budget time. And this is an opportunity to both do a number of those projects and be able to return funds to the towns. What the process is, if the school committee were to approve this proposal for a use of an additional $271,000 from excess and deficiency, what you would do is you would vote to use that amount from the current certified E&D. So it's the E&D that was certified from the FY20 budget that we used during the budget cycle. Then we have to send notification to the towns, and each town has 45 days to take action on it. So if they held a special town meeting, for example, and voted against it, that would be their action. They don't need to do that. They don't need to notify us either if they don't take action. They typically do, just so we know in advance. But they have 45 days. If they don't take action, we can spend it after that. Then our excess funds from this year would be certified in December or January to be used for the FY23 budget. So we're actually using what's already certified.
So let's pause there for a second. Everybody get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I did, I thought it'd be important to see our FY20 was certified at $1,068,911. We voted to use $512,000 already. Part of that was 160 of that was to do the chiller, to actually pay off the chiller. We were going to borrow this year, but given the year, it was almost impossible for Steve and the guys to get the bid together. And then to do the community space locker replacement. We'd already approved that last year. So that's in the 512. And then the 271, if you take it out, it leaves us with a certified amount of 285. And then we're projecting $1.5 million dropping into E&D for a new estimated balance of $1,882,950. And that's, as long as Steve doesn't spend any more money in the next 2 weeks. And then that leaves about $369,914 to go back to the towns. And that gets split based on the FY22, because we wouldn't give it back until next year after it's certified, their rates then. And I have, that's 74.5 for Great Barrington, 12.7%. So for Great Barrington, again, and I want to make sure that the school committee and the public knows these are really, really rough estimates. If it were 369,000, it would be about 275,000 in Great Barrington and 47,000 to each Stockbridge and West Stockbridge. Again, rough estimates. I cannot emphasize that enough, that I don't want the towns, I don't want anybody to be counting on that, but I wanted you to have a sense of what we were looking at as potential E&D for next year and the ability to do some projects.
So highly unusual. This doesn't, one other time in 12 years, we've given money back to the towns, I believe.
Right.
Right, so doesn't happen a lot. But if you look at what the assessments were this year and then take the potential return to the towns off of those assessments, and everybody always remembers the assessment, not what we give back, but financially this would be very attractive to them.
And how that works is we typically send it back in the fourth quarter, or what we actually do is reduce the assessment in the fourth quarter. We send a new letter reducing the assessment by whatever amount is going back to the town. So that's how they get their money back. They just don't pay us.
Right. And then that money drops to their free cash to be used
The year after,
right
Right.
in some way, maybe to reduce assessments or to
however they see fit.
put in a stabilization fund, whatever they're excited about.
So that's the first page, and then all the projects are on the back. And what I did also, Steve has more projects planned than what we're looking for the additional funds. As I said in the bottom two sections, the $80,000 projections are coming out of what we already voted on for E&D. Then we have money coming out of a couple of other grants for other projects that he's doing. So we're trying to be pretty efficient and get as much done as possible.
Do I have a motion to accept the end of year projection and summer work?
So moved. Seconded.
Sharon, is that, you don't have a prepared motion, right?
I don't, what the motion would be is.
Let's withdraw those two.
Take money.
Jason, go ahead with what she tells.
I'd use an additional 271,000 from the current certified E&D to undertake additional projects.
I make a motion that we use an additional 271,000 from the E&D for additional projects as proposed.
So I have a motion by Jason, a second by Bill. Any discussion on that? It's a roll call vote. I don't see any hands. Ann?
Aye.
Jason? Aye. Bonnie?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
Bill? Yes. Diane?
Yes.
Lori?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous.
Great, thank you. This is good. I think it's good for the district, good for kids, good for Steve.
Yep.
Thank you, Steve and Sharon, for your work on this.
Good for the nurse.
Yeah.
Any old or new business to come before this committee? All public comment? I see none, so by unanimous consent, we are adjourned.
Good. Okay, I'm gonna sign us off.